What Paris has, it has an ethos, a life. It has
A bouquet?
a spirit all of its own. Like a wine, it has
A bouquet.
a bouquet.
Back in the day, Doctor Who wasn't just a sci-fi show, it was a British sci-fi show. And unfortunately, that meant it had the production budget of £38, 8 shillings and 4 pence. The effects were cheesy and the sets looked like they were made from cardboard, but man, did it have great actors and great writers. People tuned in because the characters, the stories, and the ideas were solid. In the classic years, and we're talking 63 to 89, Doctor Who captured the imagination of thousands. It was clever in the way that British TV often is, not flashy, but thoughtful. It brought in real scientific ideas, philosophical questions, and treacherous villains like Davros. Once upon a time, the show explored complex ideas like dangerous regimes, morality, and technology, and its use and misuse. And it pulled it off with some genuinely great performances, especially from iconic doctors like Tom Baker. Now, beyond complex themes, the writers of Doctor Who made an effort to build on actual scientific concepts. And a great example of that was the E-Space trilogy, where the Doctor and Romana accidentally enter a charged vacuum emboyment, which was a theoretical idea similar to a wormhole. The concept of E-Space was based loosely on alternate universes and the idea of negative coordinates in space-time, which, while speculative, echoed real discussions in physics about parallel universes. And that's what made the show so cool. When a plot was based on existing concepts, it fired the imagination, and they explored all sorts of ideas: entropy, black holes, genetics, AI. Doctor Who was often ahead of its time and used mind-bending ideas that later showed up in other sci-fi and fantasy works. One great example was the logic puzzle with the two guards in the movie Labyrinth in 1986. A nearly identical riddle appears in Pyramids of Mars in 1975, where the Doctor and Sarah had to choose between two buttons, one safe, one deadly, and are given a logic problem to solve it. They had to talk to one guard that only told the truth and one guard that only told lies. And it's hard to tell if this scene in Labyrinth was a complete ripoff or an homage. Now, it's probably best just to assume that the writer was a huge fan of Doctor Who and just wanted to propagate that particular bit of great writing, but who knows? Another major influence is The Matrix and Deadly Assassin, in which introduced a virtual reality-like world stored in the Time Lord's computer system. The Doctor physically enters this simulated landscape where thoughts shape reality, an idea shockingly ahead of its time. And this predates The Matrix, which, by the way, used the same name by over 2 decades. And while there is no direct link, the conceptual similarity is striking. A digital realm where consciousness can be trapped and manipulated. And this is proof of the level of writing and imagination that they had back then. Say what you will about the lackluster costume and the special effects, they had what mattered most: great ideas. But then something started to shift. As the show moved into the 80s, the magic began to fade. There were budget cuts, awkward creative choices, and a growing disconnect between showrunners and the fans. Sound familiar? One name that pops up a lot in this era is John Nathan Turner. At first, he brought some energy to the show, but eventually his decisions became more about style than substance. Flashy costumes, stunt casting, and confusing storylines started replacing the thoughtful storytelling fans loved. Sound familiar? And when Colin Baker stepped in as the 6th Doctor, things didn't exactly get better. It's not even all Baker's fault. He was just handed a version of the Doctor who was cranky, arrogant, and very hard to like. Viewers didn't connect with him, and so ratings dropped. Sound familiar? Because now in the 2020s, Doctor Who seems to be repeating the same mistakes. After a successful revival in 2005, the show came roaring back with big emotions, better effects, and a Doctor that modern audience could love. Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, and Matt Smith all helped bring in a whole new generation of fans. But over the last few seasons, the show has started to feel off. Not necessarily because of the actors like Colin Baker before them, them. They're just actors working with disjointed scripts and baffling creative choices and casting decisions. The writing has become more chaotic, the plot's messier, and the dialogue often feels like it's trying too hard to be modern. Russell T. Davies, now back in charge, seems to be falling into the same trap as Nathan Turner, trying to make Doctor Who a spectacle rather than a story. There's a lot of energy, but not a lot of direction, and fans are left wondering what happened to the thoughtful, intelligent, entertaining show they once loved. And just like in the 80s, fans are divided. Some are still clinging on with hope, and others have checked out entirely. It's a rough spot, one that the show has been in before. Now, to look for the silver lining, Doctor Who has always reinvented itself. That's part of its charm. And sometimes there are a few missteps before it finds its footing again. But looking at where the show started and how it slowly lost its way before being canceled in '89, it's hard not to feel a little deja vu. The classic series had its golden years, then it overstayed its welcome, and then ended with a whimper. The modern series seems to be drifting in a similar direction. Doctor Who had the simple idea that a show could be smart and entertaining at the same time, and that's what fans want. Not just another big budget spectacle, but something with heart, intelligence, and depth. Hopefully, the show finds its way back to that, because if there's one thing that Doctor Who has taught us, it's that nothing ever really ends, not even cancellation. There's always a chance for regeneration. Now, let's just hope we're all alive to see it. Thanks for watching.